I would prefer a president that truly seemed invested in serving the American people.
And you just feel like that hasn't been the case with Trump so far?
Ever?
Joe Biden won Wisconsin by 20,682 votes, flipping a state Donald Trump won in 2016. After spending the weekend at his house in Florida, today, Donald Trump spent his day off from his criminal trial in New York in the Midwest, doing one campaign event in Wisconsin and one in Michigan, another state Joe Biden won in 2020. Trump's pitch to those swing state voters? Praising the Supreme Court justices for overturning Roe, vowing to bring back a Muslim ban on day one of a second term, and saying the Republican Party is plunging.
Last week, we saw numbers showing clearly that the economy is crashing, with the GOP growth plunging by more than 50% just in this quarter alone. Think of that. We're plunging.
Say what now? I mean, the GOP may be plunging into chaos, but the GDP, the gross domestic product, isn't. Economic growth did slow more than expected in the first quarter. The gross domestic product grew at an annual rate of 1.6% in the first 3 months of the year, below the 2.4% estimate economists had predicted after back-to-back blockbuster GDP numbers for the last quarters of 2023. Despite that, unemployment remains below 4%, and wages and salaries for all workers rose faster than expected. And one Wall Street analysis called this American economy, quote, a wolf in sheep's clothing, i.e., incredibly strong that just looks mild. And Trump said this, which is certainly how many of us remember the spring of 2021, after power had been peacefully transferred to President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris, and it seemed like January 6th would be the end of Trump and Trumpism.
We are not going to allow this horror to continue. 3 years ago, we were a great nation.
Chairman Wickler, thank you for being here. Your response to Trump's visit to Wisconsin today.
Thanks so much for having me on, Jonathan. And I have to say, it was especially galling to have Donald Trump in Wisconsin on May Day, an international day of celebration of workers' rights. This is a union state that where unions have been under attack, especially by people that Donald Trump put into office. Scott Walker smashed unions here. Donald Trump picked up the baton, appointed anti-union U.S. Supreme Court justices, anti-union National Labor Relations Board members, and union density in Wisconsin went down and down and down until Joe Biden became president. And now we have the most pro-union president in American history, the first to ever walk on a picket line. And he has appointed members of the National Labor Relations Board who have restored union rights. Unions are actually bouncing back in Wisconsin. The number of union members is going up for the first time in really 3 decades in our state. And that's a great thing for workers. It's a great thing for everyone in the middle class who wants to be in the middle class. And it's infuriating that Biden would come here on this special day of celebration of workers to bring his lies and ridiculous attacks.
You meant Trump. That Trump would come.
Sorry.
Yes,
oh
yes. No, that's good. You're president on the brain.
Biden is welcome any May Day and any Labor Day in our state, and has been here on Labor Day in our state. Trump is the person who really led the billionaire charge against unions and against workers during his presidency. Despite talking a big con, he just sticks workers with the bill every single time.
So I want to pick up on something that you talked about at the very beginning, which how galling it was to you that Donald Trump was in the state on May Day, which celebrates workers. But I want to point something out. Bloomberg reports that Donald Trump is winning financial support from grassroots campaign contributors who work for highly unionized workplaces. This is according to FEC data. What does Joe Biden have to do to win over union workers in Wisconsin?
Well, President Biden is doing a ton to make sure that workers have funds in their pockets that they can contribute to the candidate of their choice or use to support their families. The key period is really now through Election Day. Unions do extraordinary work to make sure their members know who is sticking up for their paychecks, for their union organizing rights. The Democratic Party of Wisconsin, we're organizing all over the states, knocking on doors. Folks can volunteer if they go to wisdems.org. And the campaign is going to communicate about how they've ensured that there are constantly new jobs to do, great things to build in our state. I think we're going to see a lot of that on the airwaves. And frankly, people are going to be talking to one another. Trump is a con man. Trump tries to fool people, tries to convince them that he's on their side, and then stiffs them. He refuses to actually pay his own contractors, and he does the same thing with this country. Unless you're a billionaire friend of his, Mar-a-Lago member, he's probably going to leave you worse off. And the critical thing between now and November 5th, when the polls close, is that anyone who is rebuilding the state of Wisconsin, anyone who loves someone who wants to rebuild the state of Wisconsin, has to spread the word that one candidate, Joe Biden, is on the side of workers, and one candidate, Donald Trump, is going to screw them over just like he screwed over the workers who've worked for him for decades.
And with that, we will leave it there. Ben Wickler, thank you very much for coming to The Last Word.